being cracked was not deemed serious enough to call for a diversion. These instances being underreported and also allegedly not being directly addressed by Air India raises lot of concerns on an overall feeling of the flight safety on an airline that once proudly used to call itself India's national carrier.
A smiling family, a final selfie, and a journey that ended in tragedy. 5 members of the Joshi family, including 3 young children, lost their lives in aviation history's worst ever plane crash. What remains now is just one haunting photograph, a void that can never be filled. Here's the story of the Joshi family.
This is the last selfie of the Joshi family. Pratik Joshi, his wife Komi Vyas, and their 3 children, a daughter and twin sons. Smiling just moments before takeoff, a picture full of love, laughter and life, now frozen in time. They were on board the ill-fated Air India flight that crashed, leaving just one survivor. Pratik Joshi, a doctor practicing in London, had come home to visit with his family. They were returning from Ahmedabad when tragedy struck mid-air. Within 30 seconds from takeoff, all 5, Pratik, Komi, their daughter and twin boys, lost their lives in the deadly crash. As the heartbreaking news reached Banaswara, a wave of grief swept across their locality. The family's home is now silent, shrouded in mourning.
दीदी थी कोमी व्यास जी, तो उनकी एक लड़की थी 8 से 10 साल की मीराया जी, और 2 लड़के थे लव कुश जी।
तो ये आपको
उनको लगभग 1:30 बजे मिल गई थी।
तो ये कल ही लंदन के लिए
हाँ नहीं, कल यहाँ से अहमदाबाद के लिए रवाना हुआ मामले जी।
तो और परिवार के कोई यहाँ पर मौजूद हैं उनके अभी आपके अलावा?
हाँ सब वहीं पे।
District Collector Dr. Indrajit Singh Yadav, SP, Harshvardhan Agrawala, and other senior officials rushed to offer condolences.
परिवार के 5 लोगों का नाम कंफर्म हुआ है। दुख की इस घड़ी में परिवार के साथ जिला प्रशासन खड़ा है और हर प्रकार की मदद के लिए हम इनके साथ हैं।
The image of this young family smiling together for one last time now remains as a haunting memory of lives lost far too soon, dreams left mid-flight, and a family that never made it back home.
Let's now tell you the story of Anju Sharma. She was on her way to meet her daughter. A joyous homecoming turned into her family's worst nightmare. Anju Sharma from Haryana's Kurukshetra was among those who lost their lives in the Ahmedabad plane crash. And this is the story of a daughter who never returned home, a mother who could not see her daughter who was in the United Kingdom. Take a look.
Inconsolable scenes, a family shattered beyond words. Anju Sharma's aged parents, her relatives all gathered, but without her. Their cries echo through Ram Sharan Majra village in Kurukshetra. A daughter, a mother, a sister lost to the Ahmedabad plane tragedy. Anju, who had been living with her family in Vadodara, was on her way to London to meet her elder daughter Nimmi. A trip filled with excitement ended in utter devastation.
मेरी माँ चली गई, मम्मी के डैडी तो दोनों बैठते बैठे जो भी था उससे दीदी ने सब कुछ और चले गए। वो दोनों उनको नहीं बता सकते बिल्कुल भी कुछ भी, वो चले जाएंगे। एक माँ चली गई, दोनों ये भी चले जाएंगे।
Her elderly father, a retired army man, bedridden after a brain hemorrhage. her mother too unwell to be told the truth.
मेरे फादर इन लॉ ब्रेन हेमरेज हुआ है, उठ ही नहीं सकते बिस्तर से। मदर हार्ट के पेशेंट हैं मेरे ला जो मेरे हैं, तो उनको तो अभी बताया भी नहीं है, ना बताने की पोजीशन है कि कैसे बताएं कि वो उनको ये सदमा बर्दाश्त नहीं कर पाएंगे।
परिवार तो सारा तहस नहस हो गया जी, क्योंकि मेन की घर की परिवार की करता वो थी, तो परिवार हंसता खेलता सारा परिवार था जी। जो भी काम करते हैं यहाँ के परिवार के वहाँ के परिवार के सारे उसकी जिम्मेवारी पे ये आते।
The family is struggling to balance grief and protect the parents from more trauma. Her younger daughter provided a DNA sample in Vadodara confirming the worst. The loss is unbearable. The silence in their home is deafening. A final WhatsApp call missed by her sister Neelu, a regret she now carries forever. Anju's final status message was "Aadmi ek khilona hai," a line that now feels heartbreakingly prophetic. She was the eldest of 8 sisters, the one who held the family together. Now, she's the one who's gone too soon. Her relatives and villagers stand shoulder to shoulder as her family prepares to leave for Vadodara to bring her mortal remains back for one final farewell.
Now, viewers, we have to understand that what really happened, and for that, the black box of an aircraft is the most crucial. Now, what we understand is that the black box has been located. Now, it will be tested, it will be investigated at a neutral facility. Now, how does it hold key? We'll help you understand that. It will help investigators reconstruct the final moments of the flight. Mostly, it has data of at least the 24 hours, the last 24 hours. And it acts as a vital tool in determining the cause of the airplane crash. It has the recordings, as I suggested, and it is not black, contrary to its name. It is orange. It's bright orange, and so that it can be easily spotted. And designed to survive extreme impact, fire, and underwater pressure. So we understand that there was an explosion, and the entire aircraft was charred. But given that it's a black box, it is designed so that it has minimum damage. Now, it's made up of 2 components: flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder. So the data of the flight, the pressure, everything is recorded, and so is the recording, everything that is happening inside the cockpit. FDR records flight parameters like altitude, speed, engine data. That is what I was talking about, one of the components that has been recording all these important conversations as well. So the other component is CVR, that captures pilot conversations and the cockpit sounds as well. The forensic expert will be examining this footage and recordings at a specialized lab, and that will be mostly abroad. And its combined analysis will aid in pinpointing the exact cause of the crash, what really happened. All the data will be out, and henceforth the black box becomes very important. Having said that, it could take days, it could even take weeks or months when it comes to this data to be decoded. So that will be but very, very crucial as far as the investigation is concerned, viewers. That's all from our side on 6 Stories at 6, but our coverage continues on the biggest aviation tragedy in the history of the country. Stay tuned to Republic.
मेरी नई हुंडई एक्स्टर, तुमने भी तो कल नई कार ली है ना, उसमें भी तो होगा ना ये वॉइस इनेबल सनरूफ
है ना अंकल, सिंगर इनेबल सनरूफ।
और बेनिफिट्स ये तो मिले होंगे ना?
ये मिला।
हाँ? हुंडई कार्स पर मिल रही है अमेजिंग डील्स। वैसे लोगे तो आप हुंडई ही, चाहे दिल की सुनो या डील्स की।
दादी के हाथों का जादू और खुशबू से महकता घर, माँ की मुस्कुराहट और खाने की सुगंध। MDH गरम मसाला,
क्योंकि हर रिश्ता है स्वाद से जुड़ा।
Mahi sir, how much do you love your fans?
Honestly, I love my new fans. पुराने वाले बेकार में शोर करते।
सर फैंस हैं, शोर तो करेंगे ही ना।
नए वाले नहीं करते। And they listen to what I say.
The new generation Orient BLDC fans, super silent performance with voice control.
Silly me, I thought.
Cricket fans.
Hi, this is Chef Ranveer Brar. Guarantee you brilliance on behalf of IIHM.
आधे बाउल दही में 4 चम्मच MDH चटनी पुदीना मसाला डाला, स्टर करो, पुदीना चटनी तैयार। MDH चटनी पुदीना मसाला।
Amity University has one of India's largest merit scholarship programs for brilliant students. Over 9,000 students with 90% plus in their 12th boards are currently at Amity, benefiting from the culture of academic excellence and focus on research and innovation. To be with like-minded students who want to be successful, apply at amity.edu/scholarships.
दादी के हाथों का जादू और खुशबू से महकता घर, माँ की मुस्कुराहट और खाने की सुगंध, MDH गरम मसाला,
क्योंकि हर रिश्ता है स्वाद से जुड़ा।
मेरी नई हुंडई एक्स्टर तुमने भी तो कल नई कार ली है ना, उसमें भी तो होगा ना ये वॉइस इनेबल सनरूफ।
है ना अंकल, सिंगर इनेबल सनरूफ।
और बेनिफिट्स ये तो मिले होंगे ना?
ये मिला।
हाँ? हुंडई कार्स पर मिल रही है अमेजिंग डील्स। वैसे लोगे तो आप हुंडई ही, चाहे दिल की सुनो या डील्स की।
माही सर, how much do you love your fans?
Honestly, I love my new fans. पुराने वाले बेकार में शोर करते।
तो फैंस हैं, शोर तो करेंगे ही ना।
नए वाले नहीं करते। And they listen to what I say.
The new generation Orient BLDC fans. Super silent performance with voice control.
Silly me, I thought.
Cricket fans.
Is here. Is your home ready for the heat? Keep your roof cool and your home comfortable all summer with Roof Cool and Seal. पसीना मत बहाओ, बर्जर रूफ कूल एंड सील लगाओ।
stringent directive for enhanced safety checks on Air India's Boeing 787 aircraft fleet. Republic, Prime Minister there speaking to the injured. Prime Minister taking stock of the situation. Black box from the crash will be sent to top international lab, likely in France or US, for expert analysis. India's aviation watchdog is leading the probe. And we're getting you more breaking news right now. Iran has officially announced its withdrawal from nuclear negotiations with the United States. This is a decision that has been taken after hostilities that have been strongly seen with Israel. It comes amid heightened hostilities following Israel's large-scale military strikes on Iranian nuclear and military sites and Tehran's retaliatory drone barrage. The now collapsed talks were aimed at reviving the 2015 nuclear agreement, which had limited Iran's nuclear activity in exchange for sanctions relief, a deal the US exited in 2018 under the Donald Trump administration. Remember, this is also coming as Trump issues a warning to Iran. However, despite that, Iran now says we are announcing the withdrawal of the nuclear negotiations with the United States. It is almost seeming that the Middle East tensions are escalating now. It is the Rising Lion, the name of this operation by Israel that has struck Iran. We have to see India's interests also here. But now the big question, Trump's just do it is also clearly flopping here. We also have to see how Iran is going to be looking at this as we continue to speak about it. Remember, viewers, Israel has launched its biggest attack on Iran on Friday. It's described as preemptive strikes by them on Iran's nuclear program, sparking fears of potential all-out war between these long-time regional rivals. This attack has now reportedly killed Iran's top military commanders. Also, solution, what will going to be really done has to be seen. But now the breaking news that's coming in is that Iran has now said we will no longer be having those negotiations with the United States of America. We're also
After several days of heightened tensions, Israel launched its biggest attack on Iran during early hours of Friday. The attack targeted Israel's nuclear sites and military commanders in Tehran and beyond. The attack reportedly killed Iran Army's chief Mohammad Bagheri and Revolutionary Guard's commander-in-chief Hossein Salami. In response, Tehran launched over 100 drones towards Israel, with the Israeli military saying its air defenses were intercepting them outside the Israeli territory. Calling the offensive Operation Rising Lion, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described it as a decisive moment in the country's history.
טוב, אנחנו אחרי מכת פתיחה מאוד מוצלחת. אנחנו פגענו בפיקוד הבכיר, פגענו במדענים בכירים שמקדמים את פיתוח פצצות האטום, פגענו במתקני גרעין. אנחנו צוברים הישגים, אבל אני גם יודע ואתם יודעים, אין מלחמות חינם. ולכן אני מבקש מכם שוב להישמע בקפדנות להנחיות פיקוד העורף, וייתכן מאוד שתידרשו לשהות זמן ממושך הרבה יותר ממה שהיינו רגילים עד עכשיו במרחבים המוגנים. אנחנו הולכים להשיג הרבה מאוד הישגים בזכותכם ובזכות החיילים הגיבורים שלנו. בעזרת השם.
Netanyahu said that Israeli forces had struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. Israel has also issued a national emergency, with Defense Minister Israel Katz asking citizens to follow instructions of the Home Front Command and the authorities and remain in protected areas. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has warned Israel that it will face a bitter and painful fate over the attacks. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has distanced itself from the Israeli strikes. The White House affirmed that it had no role to play in the strikes and urged Tehran not to target US interests or personnel in the region.
Viewers, we're now going to show you a video about a married couple. Just hours before they boarded the flight, they were speaking, joking and talking at the airport, the Ahmedabad airport, about their day. The British couple lost their life in the plane crash. Moments before boarding the ill-fated Air India flight, they posted about their magical experience in the country and the very calming time they had had.
We are in the airport, just boarding. Goodbye, India.
Goodbye, India. Going back happily calm. Their voices full of joy, hearts full of memories. These were the final words of a British couple moments before boarding the ill-fated Air India flight. Fiongal and Jamie Greenlaw-Me captured their happy moments on camera, laughing, sharing inside jokes from their journey across the country, not knowing that tragedy was just moments away.
We are in the airport, just boarding. Goodbye, India.
A day before the incident, they had shared another video calling their India trip magical and mind-blowing.
So it's our last night in India, and we've had a magical experience, really. There's been some quite mind-blowing.
Back in London, the couple ran a spiritual wellness center, healing others, their lives full of purpose. In 2020, Jamie popped the question, presenting Fiongal with a striking emerald ring. 2 years later, they tied the knot, sealing their bond in a quiet ceremony surrounded by friends and family. But their journey ended in tragedy. Two souls who believed in light, taken away too soon. The world has lost a love story mid-flight.
A tragedy that didn't just fall from the skies, it tore through futures, friendships, families. At Vijay Medical College in Ahmedabad, doctors and students had just sat down for lunch. Seconds later, the plane crashed into their mess. Some never got to take a bite. Some never made it out. A campus known for saving lives is now mourning its own.
Plates full of food. Fresh dal, roti, sabzi, untouched. The doctors and medical college students had just sat down. The lunch was served, but fate had other plans. They had removed their gloves, a daily ritual before every meal. The gloves now rest quietly beside the plates, and the hands that wore them no longer move. Then came the deadly crash. The ceiling caved in, debris rained over their meal. One part of the mess stays completely wiped out. Trays stayed in place. The scene looked like time stood still. The food remained, but the people didn't. A hall that was once filled with liveliness and medical chatter, now hollowed by death. Outside, sirens scream, back-to-back rallying of ambulances. The hostel has turned into heartbreak. This is no ordinary college. Vijay Medical, a government institution, oldest and the most reputed in the region. It is a temple of learning and healing. It has produced legends, doctors who served the nation. Most students here are on scholarships from humble homes with big dreams. The hostel was their second home.
Now it's just silence and soot. And the mess? It never served again. Colleagues lost, dreams shattered, and in complete disbelief, the professor of the Vijay Medical College was in a state of shock. Among the crowd outside were women in anguish. Their loved ones were also in the mess, cooking food just moments before impact. Some were girls, some family members. Now, no trace of them.
रहे थे वो खाना पका रहे थे जो लड़की राम खेल रही थी वहाँ
माता जी कौन
મારી બેબી છે મારી સાસુ રસોઈ બનાવે છે અંદર અને અમે ટિફિન સર્વિસ કરીએ છીએ ડોક્ટર ટિફિન સર્વિસ કોઈ પત્તો નથી મારી બેબીને.
Outside the mess, there was a tea shop which is now just a memory. A 16-year-old named Pratik ran the stall, a go-to stall for all the doctors and medical aspirants. But a young Pratik was also taken away by fate. His mother, who tried to save him, has suffered severe third-degree burns and is battling for her life.
वहाँ जहाँ क्रेज हुआ वहीं पे ही लड़का खड़ा था, तो वहाँ तुरंत वो जल गया और उसकी मम्मी को पता चला कि वो मेरा लड़का तो वहाँ है, तो उसको वो कम से कम तकरीबन 16-17 साल का होगा शायद कपड़े में, और उसकी मम्मी उसको बचाने के लिए गई मगर लड़के को पहचान नहीं पाया, हालत इतनी भयंकर हो गई थी, तो वो अंदर जाने के बाद वो भी कम से कम बहुत ज़्यादा जल गई है, वो अभी सिविल हॉस्पिटल में भर्ती हुई है.
While 241 passengers lost their lives on the plane, the medical hostel too is left grieving. Some have lost their friends, some students, some teachers, and the nation has lost some of the brightest minds and the future doctors.
Heart-wrenching stories have come to the fore, and among those is the story of Kushbu, a newly married woman with eyes full of hope. Little did she know that one picture with her father would be her last one.
The tragedy of Air India Flight 171 has left families broken, dreams shattered, and futures stolen. Among those on board was Kushbu Rajpurohit, a young woman from Balotra's Araba village, a newlywed with a future full of hope. What should have been a journey to reunite with her husband in London became a journey from which she would never return. Just moments before the crash, her father had posted a WhatsApp status wishing her well on her journey, completely unaware that he was about to lose his daughter forever. What was meant to be a simple farewell became a devastating goodbye. Kushbu Rajpurohit, who had only married in January this year, was supposed to meet her husband in London, together beginning their new life. Instead, she's now among the victims of this horrific crash. Kushbu's father had made his way to the airport that day, standing by his daughter, proud of a new life ahead. A simple farewell, a moment filled with love and hope. It's a story shared by so many families affected by this tragedy. A life full of promise, cut short in a blink of an eye. A sister, a wife, and a daughter. Kushbu's family, now left to mourn her, is just one example of the countless dreams dashed by the crash of Air India Flight 171.
This is an important story, viewers. Republic investigation into the safety concerns at the Air India led to this information about two separate incidents that took place yesterday, the same day of this unfortunate crash, from a hydraulic leak that forced the Chandigarh-Leh flight to return back to Chandigarh after takeoff, to a shocking instance of outer panes of both windshields cracking on the Delhi-Hyderabad flight and the plane continuing to the destination. Here's what my colleague Harsha is reporting on this Air India story.
While the focus of entire world was on AI-171 crash, Republic investigation unearthed some serious safety concerns raised by DGCA in its 15 show-cause notices issued to Tata-owned Air India in the span of 2 months. The sources have revealed to Republic today about other concerning instances of flight safety, where it has been mentioned about the instances on June 12th, that's yesterday. However, on the same very day of the airplane crash, there was no mentioning about these instances in the media or even by Air India. On June 12th, Air India's AI-3416 flying from Chandigarh to Leh made an unexpected turn back. The flight, which took off from Chandigarh, according to the information accessed by Republic, the pilot reported of the low pressure in the green hydraulic pump. The hydraulic power is essential for systems like primary flight controls, landing gear, some spoilers, normal braking and slats. Fortunately, we got to know that the flight made a safe landing back in Chandigarh, but when the inspections of the aircraft A320 took place, it was found that there was a leak in the hydraulic line in the nose gear area. In a separate incident on the same very day as the AI-171 crash, another Air India flight AI-2465 flying from Delhi to Hyderabad experienced cracked windshield. As per report is accessed by Republic TV, what is concerning is that the pilot reported not one but both the windshield of the aircraft cracked. The assessment of the time suggested that it was the AC rack on the outer plane and would not lead to any pressurization issue, and hence the flight continued to its destination of Hyderabad. In the past, like in 2015, we have seen Air India flights return back after cracks were observed on the windshield. However, in this case, it seems like the situation of the outer panes of both windshields being cracked was not deemed serious enough to call for a diversion. These instances being underreported and also allegedly not being directly addressed by Air India raises a lot of concerns on an overall feeling of the flight safety on an airline that once proudly used to call itself India's national carrier.
After Axiom 4 mission being postponed, NASA and ISRO have now released statements on their X accounts on the matter. The mission was supposed to launch on June 9th. After its initial delay, people have been waiting to see Captain Shubhanshu Shukla make his way to the International Space Station with the 3 other team members. There are details on the story.
India eagerly waited for June 9th to see Captain Shubhanshu Shukla embark on the Axiom 4 mission. However, the mission to the International Space Station was postponed due to a technical glitch being detected on the Falcon 9 rocket. ISRO Chief V. Narayanan also posted on X. He stated that ISRO is working closely with Axiom Space, NASA, and SpaceX as they responsibly address the ISS module observation causing the delay. When the mission launches, the world will witness Shubhanshu Shukla from India, Peggy Whitson from the US, Slavoj Uznansky from Poland, and Tibor Kapu from Hungary making their way to the International Space Station.
Coming up after a short break, Boeing 787 Dreamliner was flawed. Whistleblower sounded alarm early in the year 2024. Why was his warning ignored? And DGCA has issued a stringent directive for enhanced safety checks on Air India's Boeing 787 aircraft fleet. Action taken too late. However, it's now been taken today.
Why Israel decapitated Iran's nuclear program. Israel's ambassador Reuven Nazar live with Arnav. Biggest breakdown of Israel's unprecedented strikes on Iran. Debating tonight at 8:30 p.m.
MDH की हल्दी मिर्ची धनिया करे कमाल, ये रंग दे, ये खुशबू दे, ये तीखा, ये कम पड़े, क्या निराला MDH मसाला।
आपकी फेवरेट हुंडई कार्स पर मिल रही है अमेजिंग डील्स। वैसे लोगे तो आप हुंडई ही, चाहे दिल की सुनो या डील्स की, तो जल्दी चले आओ हुंडई शोरूम।
Hi, this is Chef Ranveer Brar. Guarantee you brilliance on behalf of IAHM.
आधे बाउल दही में 4 चम्मच MDH चटनी पुदीना मसाला डाला, स्टर करो, पुदीना चटनी तैयार। MDH चटनी पुदीना मसाला।
इसको घर पे लगाओगे तो शादी का तो पता नहीं, पर घर पक्का नहीं टूटेगा।
रुंगटा नहीं तो घर स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं। रुंगटा स्टील TMT बार एकदम सॉलिड।
पहाड़ों में एक हाइकिंग शिप भी बन सकती है।
MDH की देगी मिर्च,
देगी मिर्च का तड़का, अंग अंग फड़का।
MDH की देगी मिर्च। Co-powered by Century Ply Club Prime. Raho befikar.
Amity University has one of India's largest merit scholarship programs for brilliant students. Over 9,000 students with 90% plus in their 12th boards are currently at Amity, benefiting from the culture of academic excellence and focus on research and innovation. To be with like-minded students who want to be successful, apply at amity.edu/scholarships.
सीक्रेट रेसिपी MDH का जीरा सिप जल जीरा मसाला। सिप सिप जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा सिप।
Mahi sir, how much do you love your fans?
Honestly, I love my new fans. पुराने वाले बेकार में शोर करते।
सर फैंस हैं, शोर तो करेंगे ही ना।
नए वाले नहीं करते। And they listen to what I say.
The new generation Orient BLDC fans. Super silent performance with voice control.
सिली मियाँ है तो और
Cricket fans.
आपकी फेवरेट हुंडई कार्स पर मिल रही है अमेजिंग डील्स। वैसे लोगे तो आप हुंडई ही, चाहे दिल की सुनो या डील्स की, तो जल्दी चले आओ हुंडई शोरूम।
अब छोलिया हो या लोबिया, सफेद चने या काले चने,
सब कुछ मजेदार बने।
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
Hello and welcome you watching the Friday edition of This Is Exclusive with me, Shavan Sen. It is undoubtedly the biggest aviation tragedy that our country has witnessed. But were there things that we could have actually avoided? Is the aviation industry really taking the safety checks seriously? And as far as Air India is concerned, over the last several months put together, Republic Media Network has put out various lapses on the part of the airline, some that we have always questioned. But as a response, very little has come in from the airline as well as the DGCA. Tonight on This Is Exclusive, we put the spotlight on two big aspects. What led to the crash in Ahmedabad? And secondly, is Air India to be blamed? All this and much more on this edition of This Is Exclusive. But first, let me take you through the headlines we're tracking at this hour. DGCA in the preliminary investigation has ruled out any bird hit or flight overloading. We get you the exclusive news break in a short while from now. Too little, too late, DGCA. 242 lives lost. DGCA now orders inspection of all Boeing 787 aircraft. Republic investigation reveals that there was minimum 70 ton of fuel in the Air India aircraft that crashed. We tell you why this is important. As Air India 171 took off, none of them knowing it would be their final journey, we get you the story of the 20-year-old air hostess who lost her life in the ill-fated flight. Ladies and gentlemen, the aircraft carrying 241 passengers and crew members crashed shortly after takeoff, claiming the lives of everyone on board minus one person. The cause of the crash is still unknown, but our thoughts are with the families who have lost their loved ones. The aircraft tore through a doctor's hostel, but this wasn't just tragic. It was perhaps preventable, ladies and gentlemen, by what Republic has actually gathered from the investigation. 4 major warnings were basically ignored before the takeoff. Technical fault in the incoming flight, visible glitches mid-air, multiple regulatory warnings to Air India, and known issues with Boeing 7878. Was this negligence the big question that is in the spotlight? For the same, Republic reached out to the DGCA, and perhaps there are several questions that are now coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, first, this is a preliminary report. We'll go back to the breaking news now coming in. The preliminary report of the DGCA essentially ruling out any bird hit or flight overloading. DGCA is essentially inquiring on the lapses around dual engine of the aircraft. They're also investigating on why the cockpit engine didn't give any warnings if the engines had technical issue. In fact, they were also sought maintenance and service sheet from Air India before its departure from Ahmedabad. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to now put the focus on the 2 video of the crash, because that tells you what really happened minutes after the flight actually took off. And that one message that came in from Captain Sumit Sabharwal: Mayday, lost thrust, no power, unable to lift. Let's explain what really happened. This was the very moment that from runway number 23, the Boeing 7878 took off. 8 seconds, 9, 10, 11, 12 seconds, and now actually within the next few seconds, you would see the descent actually begins. So the lift that we're talking about was just about 650 feet. That was the lift, and immediately after that you have a descent of minus 400 going down and crashing. From this particular image, speaking to multiple aviation experts, one thing becomes very clear, that it lands on the tail and then you have this smoke ball coming in from that very area. A similar sort of incident actually also took place in the United States of America, but the difference was that you had that landing in Hudson Bay, and that is the reason why lives was saved. In this, remember, there was very little chance that the pilot and the first officer had as far as maneuvering, because this goes right straight into a residential area. So within that few seconds of the lift, you have the entire aircraft crashing down. And chances of survival became absolutely perhaps negligible, given the fact that you had about 70 tons of aviation fuel loaded, and that is the reason why, remember, and with the existing heat in Ahmedabad, it was extremely difficult, and that is the reason why this entire operation of identifying the bodies is also now becoming extremely difficult. That's video 1. Let's move to the video 2, because that's again an angle that's a different angle altogether. There you see it, there as it goes down, there is still an attempt that has been made by the pilot to keep the nose of the aircraft above, which essentially means that's the last attempt that the pilot is actually making to ensure that the aircraft gets the lift, gets the push to basically maneuver forward. But it seems that they were losing the control completely at this point in time. What is it that the DGCA is essentially indicating? Let's go back to the breaking news now coming in. The breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, coming in is with regards to the number of show cause notices that have already been issued, and the fact that the latest being from the preliminary report that has been carried out, investigation that has been carried out, which they're basically focusing right now on the engine lapses or the engine malfunction, if we can just make that change right now, the technical glitches that they are basically focusing on, because they are saying there is no bird hit or there's no overload. In fact, there are seats that were basically vacant, and remember, one of the provisions that the pilots essentially have, if at all there is overloading, they can offload roughly about a little over 10 kilogram also. But here the DGCA indicating that there is no bird hit because there's no carcass of any bird that has been found. At least that's the preliminary investigation. Let me go across to my colleague Harsha, who's joining us from outside the DGCA office, getting us the latest details. So Harsha, the focus right now on one aspect, that is whether at all there was an engine failure or not. This is a GE engine that was being used by Boeing. In fact, it turns out that Boeing is also going to be participating in this entire investigation. Is the DGCA absolutely clear that there is no overload, which means that the center of gravity as far as this particular aircraft is concerned, that there wasn't an imbalance in that? Is that what the DGCA is now indicating?
So, Shravan, right now what we have calculated after getting through our sources about the capacity of the passengers as well, 256 is the overall capacity which the aircraft can hold, and in this aircraft there were 242 passengers. In fact, if we talk about the gallon, if we talk about the fuel, there was 70-ton fuel in the aircraft, and if we calculated about the number of hours of the flying and how long it takes from Ahmedabad to London, 70-ton is accurate and adequate amount of fuel for the aircraft Boeing 787 to travel from Ahmedabad to London. Now, after calculating everything, and DGCA also investigating primarily in all the aspects, now DGCA has come to notice that their engine is the main reason around which the investigation has to revolve, because earlier also it has been seen that there has been one engine snags, technical snag earlier also in aircraft Boeing 787, earlier also when we have reported in several instances. But in this case, there was a dual engine problem. There was not problem with one engine. There was problem with two engines of the aircraft. But why the cockpit, the machines of the cockpit, when the pilot was seated in the aircraft at that particular timing?
Harsha, you're getting us another big breaking news coming in, because now there is some clarity with regards to the weight of the aircraft. That is with regards to the fuel that they were carrying. You are telling us that Air India flight, which crashed outside the Ahmedabad airport, had about 70-ton fuel in the aircraft. That is the Boeing, which basically uses only 1 ton of fuel. In 1 hour, the Boeing uses 1 ton of fuel. Ahmedabad to London, it's a 10-hour fuel, a 10-hour long flight, which essentially means that it required about 60 ton of fuel. It is now quite clear that they had 2 hours of extra fuel that they were carrying. Now, that was essentially part of protocol, because if at all there is some sort of a diversion, the aircraft can and the crew could actually make the decision of diversion, and that is the reason why that 2 hours of extra fuel that they were carrying, which puts together 70 tons. So you could understand with that impact that the aircraft had after that thud, that immediately after it landed, what really happened thereafter. And that explains the fireball that we saw in that area. Harsha, what does this essentially mean? 2 hours of extra fuel, that is the reason why perhaps what we were seeing, that fireball immediately after the crash?
And the fireball which we saw, because the protocol also says that whenever there's an engine failure, whenever there's a situation like this, which occurred in this situation as well, at that time pilot has to empty the tank of the aircraft. In this situation, everything happened in seconds. Everything happened in 52 seconds, and pilot didn't get enough time to empty the tank of the aircraft. And that is also one of the reasons why a safe landing couldn't be done, why emergency landing couldn't be done. In seconds only, the airplane crashed, and because because there was 70 tons, there was gallons of fuel in the aircraft. That is the reason why we saw ball of fire when there was a crash, and that is the reason the bodies were completely burnt, and the devastation, the intensity of devastation could be seen because 70-ton fuel was there in the aircraft which couldn't be emptied. Everything happened in seconds. And also what we've gotten to know through our DGCA sources, Shawan, is that everything revolves around engine and the cockpit equipment. It's very important to know that whenever the pilot boards the aircraft, whenever the pilot in command sits in the cockpit, the first thing is that every check is being done. In this case, there was no engine warning. There was no engine warning which was shown to the pilot in command or the first officer. Everything which was shown in the cockpit machines was absolutely okay, and that is the reason why the pilot decided to take off. But after takeoff only, there was some thrust issue, the engine issue, which pilot immediately told to the ATC, and there was a communication between ATC that there's some issue with the engine. After that, communication broke. In few seconds only, we saw the plane get crashed, and this is the reason why DGCA in the preliminary investigation also states that engine failure could be the main reason, and therefore the investigation has now started around cockpit and around the engine failure issue, with the faulty engine issues. Back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Harsha, for getting us the latest details. In fact, what perhaps were the reasons? And that's the reason why many are now speculating what could actually have led to this kind of a crash. Thank you very much, Harsha. We're now going to put the entire focus on what are the reasons. In fact, we have decoded 3 possible reasons after speaking to multiple aviation experts on what could have actually gone wrong, leading to the crash of Air India 171. The Air India plane crash may have been caused by a combination of 3 key factors. Firstly, the high density altitude due to hot air and high elevation, reducing the aircraft's lift and the engine efficiency, making it very hard to gain height. The second, an improper takeoff configuration with flaps possibly not fully deployed, reduced lift power, and that essentially leading to a struggle during the takeoff, ultimately causing a stall. Last year, potential CRM confusion may have occurred where the crew might have mistakenly retracted the flaps instead of the landing gear, hindering the plane's ascent and contributing to the tragic crash. Now, here's a detailed explainer.
241 passengers dead, medical students and doctors crushed in their own hostel, a city devastated. And now the big question: what caused the Air India crash in Ahmedabad? Today, we're breaking down for you the 3 most likely reasons being examined by the aviation experts. Number 1, density altitude. In simpler terms, hotter the weather, thinner the air. And when the air is less dense, aircraft wings do not get enough lift. The engines too become less efficient in such a situation. And Ahmedabad's rising temperatures may have played a dangerous role in here. The aircraft may have struggled to climb right from the moment it left the ground. Second possible reason: improper takeoff configuration. Now, this means the aircraft may not have been configured correctly for the takeoff. Emerging videos suggest the flaps were not deployed. Flaps are very critical. They help generate extra lift, especially during takeoff and landing. So with the flaps in the retracted position, the aircraft would have had almost no help fighting gravity. That's very much visible in the footage. The plane went till the very end of the runway, yet never truly lifted off to its capacity. Third possible reason: cockpit resource management confusion, or what aviation calls CRM failure. Now, this includes miscommunication or human error inside the cockpit. Probably the wrong lever pulled, landing gear instead of flaps, or vice versa. The aircraft showed no positive rate of climb. The landing still not retracted and also contributes to loss of lift. And yet, no sign of engine yaw or imbalance. Now, this rules out a single engine failure. Experts believe that the aircraft was doomed right from the moment it throttled up. There was no lift, only a sinking plane with its nose still in the air. Now, these are the 3 key angles investigators are now looking at: density, altitude, configuration error, and cockpit confusion. Was it a technical fault? Was it human error? or a tragic mix of both? A black box has been located. Aviation experts are going to dig deeper into that. Families across the country are waiting for the truth, for closure, and for answers that may prevent another disaster like this.
Well, in fact, this afternoon, I also got in touch with a serving airline pilot to basically understand what could be the reasons. There are only 2 videos, ladies and gentlemen, of the crash. By the look of each of it and also the data that is available from public domain, one can only make a certain assessment of what could have really gone wrong. While there is a lot of speculation and perhaps one easy way out that many are basically resorting to, that is blame the pilot, we decided that we'll reach out to a serving airline pilot to understand what are the possible reasons and how exactly will a pilot really respond if at all he comes to know that the engines are not really working, which happens to be the rarest of rare case. Now, Captain Subit has actually put together this entire thing as to what are the possible reasons and why the pilot shouldn't really be blamed. Tonight on This Is Exclusive, we have a serving airline pilot, Captain Samrat Kaushal, who's joining us on this broadcast. Captain Kaushal, thank you very much for speaking to Republic TV. A lot of speculations are doing the rounds, and the objective to get you on This Is Exclusive is to get some clarity. There are 2 videos as far as the crash is concerned. I want your understanding of it. What perhaps could have gone wrong?
See, all eyes are on the black box right now, as rightly spoken again and again. Now, the black box is mostly composed of the cockpit voice recorder, which will give you recordings of basically the last 2 hours of conversation which took place and to the last second before the crash happened. And it also has the DFDR, which is the recorder which will have the data of what inputs were given for the flight, what inputs were given by the pilots during those last few minutes, and in fact, it was a very short flight. Also, there's another, with such aircraft, there's also engine performance monitoring. Now that goes directly to the manufacturer, that also goes to the operator sometimes, and which they will get to know if there was anything wrong with the equipment, anything wrong with the engine parameters, because there's a very huge doubt. Everybody's thinking of the first thing, was it a dual engine failure just upon takeoff? Because such aircrafts, they are believed to be very, very powerful. They are believed to be very, very safe. They have many, many redundancies. They have many, many safety factors. But if both engines are gone, the aircraft just cannot be in the air anymore, and especially at such low altitude.
Right.
People have been noticing the altitude of 652 feet. I have learned that it was only 652 feet when the aircraft just started having a stall or just went into the ground. What we are not understanding is the altitude of Ahmedabad itself is 174 feet. Now, if you subtract 652 from 174, the aircraft only went some 450 feet in the air. And that is why it immediately went down into the buildings which were in the periphery of the airport. But the point is this, that mostly this happens, and it has happened in the past. It could be a flock of birds in the vicinity. We have had
I want to emphasize a little bit, Captain Kaushal, I want to emphasize in the fact that dual engine failure, rarest of rare cases, what many aviation experts are arguing. You may have also flown a similar aircraft. I want to understand this, that can that be a huge possibility right now? Because the way you have the aircraft descending, it can only mean that something drastically went wrong. Would it be the loss of power because there was no thrust that the engine was getting? So is there a high probability?
The aircraft is primarily dependent upon the lift at this time, which is being provided or augmented by the thrust at such low altitude. So 100% it is everybody's first doubt that it must be a dual engine failure. Now that can happen by virtue of birds being close in the vicinity. There can be a likelihood. We've had this problems before. It's a very famous, as we know, we watched the movie Captain Sullenberg, who crashed on the Hudson River. He had a dual engine failure, and the videos and everything showed how a flock of birds hit both engines at the same time because they were in the vicinity. And same can happen in the case of Ahmedabad. they can be buzzed around the area. And as soon as the aircraft took off, went out of the runway 23, where it took off from, it could have been a dual engine failure.
But Captain Marshall, when I spoke to some of my sources in the DGCA, they're saying that no carcass was actually found as far as bird hit is concerned. So there is a high possibility that they're already ruling out the bird hit theory.
But the point is this, at such altitudes, without 2 engines, there's nothing much you can do. And it is not that always it is the pilot who has to be blamed. It is not that if he's alive, we should jail him, and if he's died already, we should blame him. There has to, whenever these kind of catastrophes are involved, whenever these kind of major world-shaken tragedies are involved, it is always a Swiss cheese model. It is always that so many errors went together and all of them aligned for this to happen. Remember, don't forget about the Calicut crash which happened.
You're saying for this kind of a catastrophic incident to take place, there would have been multiple errors. It cannot be perhaps pinned down to one particular reason.
Exactly, because now that the investigation report is out and we have had years and years of investigation on all these crashes, we have seen and we have observed that so many errors went on that day, and all of them combined was the result of such a huge fatality. That is what we came out with the Air India crash which had happened in Calicut. 43 errors were made from the ground staff, from the engineers, from the ATC, from all the departments combining to a crash. So it's not always the pilot involved. And we should, as human beings, remember.
What are
yes,
the areas,
the pilots are
Captain?
responsible, but he's the first person sitting in the front. If anything will go wrong with him first.
Captain, when you're basically looking at a situation like this, what are the possible areas of investigation right now? You are saying there would be multiple departments. Can you help us understand when you say multiple department, what does it really mean?
See, when a flight takes off, there is always a lot of resources, a lot of people working under it, a lot of external and internal agencies. There is a huge ground staff which will give you the weight and the loading of the fuel. There are ATC which will give you the takeoff based upon the weather they receive. There are a lot of clearances involved. A lot of structures are involved. There is man, material, machinery. So all of them combined are responsible for the safe flight to operate.
Right.
And when things go wrong, the whole structure changes.
There is also another argument that has been made by a few, that is about the load sheet of the aircraft. Some also arguing that the center of gravity of the aircraft would have been affected if the load was perhaps not within the permissible limit. By the images that you have seen, can there be any assumption or can there be any understanding of the load that the aircraft was actually taking, and could that be one of the reasons?
At this point, it is very early to comprehend something like that. But like I said, when such things go wrong, there is a multiple failure and a lot of factors which coincide together for such a big error. And yes, the first thing everybody's thinking of is dual engine failure, because at such low altitude, you have nothing much to do. The airlines which did survive before is because they were on cornfield. They were a cornfield, or there was field full of, you can say, no building together, no obstructions. So they landed. Let's go back to an incident which happened on 15 August 2019. A Russian aircraft which took off from Moscow had a similar event. It was an A321 Airbus company, 225 plus passengers on board. They took off, had dual engine failure, but they were lucky that there was cornfield. So they landed on the cornfield, and thankfully there were not much fatalities and passengers survived. Yes, there were injuries, but unlike Ahmedabad, there were not so many buildings there. But here, it crash landed in the saddest place, where it was a hostel there. So a lot of factors. We should ultimately, the investigation will answer all. But yes, there are so many things which will go wrong. It's not just one person to blame. I believe that.
Well, thank you very much, Captain Kaushal, for joining us and helping us piece together what perhaps could be the reason, or as you're pointing out, multiple reasons behind the air crash.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I now bring to you the story of a 20-year-old air hostess who was on board the ill-fated flight. Our hearts go out to the family of Nganthoi Sharma, the young air hostess from Manipur who was on board the ill-fated Air India flight. Just 20 years old with her whole life ahead of her. It's unimaginable for her family to be waiting anxiously for news, hoping against hope that she might still be alive. The fact that her phone is still switched on, receiving signals, must be both a glimmer of hope and a cruel reminder of the uncertainty. Though the wait must be agonizing, the family just finds it difficult to believe that their daughter is no more. This is her story.
I am going to London. In a few minutes, we'll take off. We may not be able to call for a while. But the call never came. Her phone rang, but no one answered. These words, once filled with hope, now echo with grief in the Sharma household in Thobal district of Manipur. When the news of the crash broke, her family tried calling her repeatedly. Her phone kept ringing, and the internet was still on. This is what her cousin Kenjeta recalled. Nganthoi had joined Air India in 2022 through recruitment in Imphal. Based in Mumbai, she had recently begun flying on international routes, a dream come true for the young woman who was also pursuing her undergraduate degree. As the middle child of 3 sisters, Nganthoi was the pride of the family. The tragic news brought heartbreak in Manipur. In the state that was once divided by communities have come together in shared mourning. This was the last video that was shot by Air India air hostess Nganthoi, who lost her life in the crash. Nganthoi Sharma was among the 12 cabin crew members on board the Air India flight which crashed on Thursday. She was just 20-year-old, pride of her family. 242 lives that were on board the Air India plane have been lost. Air India must answer.
In fact, joining us from Imphal is Mr. Nandesh Kumar. He's the father of the 20-year-old air hostess. सबसे पहले आपसे शुरुआत करना चाहूँगा. आपके लिए और आपके परिवार के लिए बहुत ही कठिन वक्त है और इस वक्त आपके साथ पूरा देश खड़ा है. मैं आपसे पहले जानना चाहूँगा कि आपकी बेटी 20 साल की और इस पूरे I'm not too sure if the frame. Yeah. We'll try and just reconnect with him. नंदेश कुमार जी,
यहाँ पे साउंड तो
मेरी आवाज आ रही है आपको?
हम तो ठीक से नहीं सुन रहे.
मेरी आवाज आपको आ रही है? नंदेश कुमार जी, क्या मेरी आवाज आ रही है आपको? Well, in fact, we seem to be having some connectivity issue with Mr. Nandesh Kumar. In fact, we'll try and reconnect with him and we'll tell you the story. It's a heart-wrenching story of the 20-year-old whose dreams were brutally taken away, snuffed out.
Co-powered by Century Ply Club Prime. रहो बेफिक्र.
पैसा लगाना है तो सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ. डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा, धोखा नहीं देगा, ऊपर नीचे भी नहीं होगा, सेफ रहेगा, सिक्योर्ड में मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा. अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ. सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र.
MDH की देगी मिर्च,
देगी मिर्च का तड़का, अंग अंग फड़का.
MDH की देगी मिर्च.
Mahi sir, how much do you love your fans?
Honestly, I love my new fans. पुराने वाले बेकार में शोर करते.
सर फैंस हैं, शोर तो करेंगे ही ना.
नए वाले नहीं करते. And they listen to what I say.
The new generation Orient BLDC fans. Super silent performance with voice control.
Silly me, I thought.
Cricket fans.
Hi, this is Chef Ranveer Brar. Guarantee you brilliance on behalf of IIHM.
MDH की हल्दी मिर्ची धनिया करे कमाल, ये रंग दे, ये खुशबू दे, ये तीखा, ये कम पड़े, क्या निराला MDH मसाला।
Co-powered by Century Ply Club Prime. Raho befikar.
Amity University has one of India's largest merit scholarship programs for brilliant students. Over 9,000 students with 90% plus in their 12th boards are currently at Amity, benefiting from the culture of academic excellence and focus on research and innovation. To be with like-minded students who want to be successful, apply at amity.edu/scholarships.
पैसा लगाना है तो सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ, डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा, धोखा नहीं देगा, ऊपर नीचे भी नहीं होगा, सेफ रहेगा, सिक्योर्ड भी, मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा। अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ। सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र।
MDH की देगी मिर्च,
देगी मिर्च का तड़का, अंग अंग फड़का।
MDH की देगी मिर्च।
Mahi sir, how much do you love your fans?
Honestly, I love my new fans. पुराने वाले बेकार में शोर करते।
सर फैंस है, शोर तो करेंगे ही ना।
नए वाले नहीं करते। And they listen to what I say.
The new generation Orient BLDC fans. Super silent performance with voice control.
Silly me, I thought.
Cricket fans.
अब छोलिया हो या लोबिया, सफेद चने या काले चने,
सब कुछ मजेदार बने।
MDH।
Ladies and gentlemen, in Manipur's Thobal town, the news of 20-year-old air hostess death has plunged the entire town into complete sadness. She started her career when she was a teenager. This was her first international flight. She was supposed to come back on 15th of June. In fact, the last call that she made was to her elder sister just about few hours before she boarded the flight. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we tell you the story of 21-year-old air hostess Nganthoi Sharma, who lost her life in this fatal accident. Joining us from Imphal is her father Nandesh Kumar and his mother. Nandesh ji, क्या मेरा आवाज आपको आ रही है?
हाँ जी।
सबसे पहले तो शुरुआत करना चाहूँगा क्योंकि मुझे पता है कि ये आपके लिए और आपके परिवार के लिए बहुत कठिन समय है और इस वक्त हम लोग आप सबके साथ खड़े हैं, पर आपकी बेटी की कहानी पूरे देश को जानना चाहिए। मणिपुर से, थौबाल से वो थी और एक तरह से कई लोगों के लिए, कई लड़कियों के लिए वो प्रेरणा थी कि किस तरह से वो कॉलेज ख़त्म करके एयर होस्टेस बनी। आपकी बेटी की कहानी पूरी देश को मैं सुनाना चाहता हूँ। सबसे पहले आपसे शुरुआत करना चाहूँगा कि जब वो इम्फाल से निकली, थौबल से निकली और ये पूरा उनके एक ड्रीम पूरी करने की कोशिश कर रही थी, क्या वो आपको क्या कहती थी? वो
एजुकेशन के लाइफ से उनकी ड्रीम
नंदी जी, वो कब अपनी ट्रेनिंग के लिए वो कब गई? क्या मेरी आवाज आ रही है आपको?
3 का अप्रैल में इसका ट्रेनिंग शुरू किया है।
ये कहा जा रहा है कि आपकी बेटी ने आपकी बड़ी बेटी से आखिरी कॉल किया, क्या कहा उसने जब आखिरी बार उन्होंने फोन किया?
आखिरी बार मेरे बड़ी बेटी से वो फोन पे मुलाकात हुआ, दीदी हम लंदन जा रहा है, ये 10 मैसेज, लेकिन मैं 15 तारीख में फिर वापस आके फोन करेंगे। इसके बाद रथ यात्रा के लिए मैं छुट्टी लेकर घर पे वापस आएंगे, उसी समय ठीक से बात करेंगे।
नंदेश जी, क्योंकि ये कहा जाता है कि जिस तरह से उसने ये ट्रेनिंग की और उसके बाद अकेली रहती थी, वो मुंबई में कई सारे ऐसे ख्वाब उन्होंने देखा है। मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगा कि क्योंकि आपकी बेटी एक तरह से कई लोगों के लिए मिसाल रहेंगी, छोटा सा उम्र बट साथ ही साथ उन्होंने कई सारी चीज़ प्राप्त की। आपसे जानना चाहूँगा कि जब आप उससे अपने फ्लाइंग करियर की बात करते तो वो क्या कहती थी? उनको कैसा लगता था ये उड़ान भरने के लिए?
उड़ान भरने के लिए तो मेरे दिल से चाहता था, लेकिन वो एक दिन क्या उनके कुछ नाम रोशनी निकल पाने के लिए, माँ बाबा लोगों के सामने कुछ नाम रोशन पाने के लिए वो ऐसे काम पे जुड़ चुका है। और इसके बाद 2 बार 3 बार करके फिर वापस आ, एक दिन ऐसे रोशनी करके घर का सारा देखभाल वो करेंगे। उनके दीदी, उनके छोटी बहन और जो माँ बाबा और हमारा खानदानी लोगों को इसके रोशन करने के लिए दिल चाहता था। अब तो क्या करें, अब तो उपाय नहीं।
जब आपकी बड़ी बेटी से मैंने बात की तो उन्होंने कहा कि आपकी बेटी को सरप्राइज देना बहुत पसंद था, और जब वो मुंबई से आती थी वो कभी आप लोगों को कहती नहीं थी कि वो घर वापस आ रही है?
करते थे, लेकिन 2-3 बार ऐसे किया था। पहले बार भी सरप्राइज किया और दूसरा बार भी सरप्राइज करके घर के गेट में ही मुलाकात हुआ। और मैं 25 पे मार्च 12 तारीख में मैं हॉस्पिटल के इलाज करने गया था, और वापस आते समय उसने फोन किया और बाबा हम थोड़े छुट्टी मिलने से आएंगे। पर उसने अचानक 17 तारीख में 18 तारीख को मेरा याद से थोड़ा कंफ्यूज हो गया है, 17 नहीं तो 17 या 18 तारीख में फिर वो भी घर के गेट में सरप्राइज करके घर पे आया था। उसका लास्ट चेहरा मेरा मुलाकात वही है और दूसरा नहीं है।
नंदी जी, एक ही चीज़ आपको ज़रूर कहना चाहूँगा, क्योंकि आज जिस तरीके से ये छोटी उम्र में इतना बड़ा सपना उन्होंने देखा, और आज सबको ये चीज़ याद रहेगा, क्योंकि इस वक्त सबके लिए बहुत कठिन वक्त है। और मैं नहीं चाहूँगा कि आपको इस वक्त में और ज़्यादा कोई सवाल करूँ, बट एक चीज़ ज़रूर कहना चाहूँगा, पूरे देश आपकी बेटी, एवरी वन ऑफ अस, सब लोग गर्व से कह सकते हैं कि मणिपुर की ये लड़की, हम देश की बेटी। मैं नहीं चाहूँगा कि इस वक्त आपसे और कोई सवाल करूँ, क्योंकि आप सबके लिए बहुत ही कठिन वक्त है। एंड लेडीज़ एंड जेंटलमैन, दीज आर हार्ट-wrenching stories really coming in from 242 lives that have been lost. These are not just numbers. In fact, today we are remembering every family who've lost their loved ones, ladies and gentlemen. Questions will certainly be raised about what really happened. But the reality is that let us not make these just numbers, but human lives that have been lost, and questions will be asked. Well, in fact, like Randesh Kumar, there are several others who have had a very, very difficult time. In fact, many have got to know about this crash just from the news. And ladies and gentlemen, till now, there are several bodies yet to be identified. That gives you a sense of perhaps one of the biggest aviation tragedy that we have witnessed in several decades put together.
Co-powered by Century Ply Club Prime. रहो बेफिक्र।
पैसा लगाना है तो सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम पे लगाओ। डूबेगा नहीं, जलेगा भी नहीं, कोई खा नहीं जाएगा, धोखा नहीं देगा, ऊपर नीचे भी नहीं होगा, सेफ रहेगा, सिक्योर्ड, मिनिमम 30 साल का रिटर्न देगा। अब इससे बेटर इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो बताओ। सेंचुरी प्लाई क्लब प्राइम, रहो बेफिक्र।
मेरी नई हुंडई एक्स्टर तुमने भी तो कल नई कार ली है ना, उसमें भी तो होगा ना ये वॉइस इनेबल सनरूफ
है ना अंकल, सिंगर इनेबल सनरूफ।
और बेनिफिट्स ये तो मिले होंगे ना?
ये मिला।
हाँ, हुंडई कार्स पर मिल रही है अमेजिंग डील्स। वैसे लोगे तो आप हुंडई ही, चाहे दिल की सुनो या डील्स की।
ये है सीक्रेट रेसिपी MDH का जीरा सिप जल जीरा मसाला। सिप सिप जीरा सिप, जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा, जीरा सिप, जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा, जीरा सिप।
Mahi sir, how much do you love your fans?
Honestly, I love my new fans. पुराने वाले बेकार में शोर करते।
तो फैंस है, शोर तो करेंगे ही ना।
नए वाले नहीं करते। And they listen to what I say.
The new generation Orient BLDC fans. Super silent performance with voice control.
सिली मी आए तो और
क्रिकेट फैंस
Hi, this is Chef Ranveer Brar. Guarantee you brilliance on behalf of IAHM.
MDH की हल्दी मिर्ची धनिया करे कमाल, ये रंग दे, ये खुशबू दे, ये तीखा, ये कम पड़े, क्या निराला MDH मसाला।
In-flight entertainment was not working. Then after and as usual the in-flight entertainment is not working. Leave in-flight entertainment.
Calculator landing stations.
If I talk about this light, it is also not working.
12 crew members lost their lives in the ill-fated Air India flight. Their families now await not for a reunion, but for their remains. Ladies and gentlemen, some of the crew members, in fact, were on their first international flight.
It was just another routine workday for the 12 crew members of the Air India flight, unaware that it would end in tragedy. The flight was commanded by seasoned pilots Captain Sumit Sabharwal and First Officer Clive Kundar with a combined flying experience of 9,300 hours. Today, Captain Sabharwal's home in Mumbai's Jalvayu Vihar stands early silent, a house full of memories now echoing with grief.
कल पता मीन्स जब टीवी पे न्यूज़ आई, हमारे जो कोई दोस्त हैं या कोई प्रोफेशनल कॉन्टैक्ट्स है, उनसे पता चला कि ये जहाज़ का ये हुआ है। और अभी घर में उनके बहन जी हैं, उनके पिताजी हैं, जो कि आगे की इसके राह देख रहे हैं।
Far away in Manipur, heartbreak has struck just as hard. Hours before takeoff, Nganthoi Sharma called her sister to say she was flying to London. He promised to call again on her return. That call never came. Another cabin crew member from Manipur was also on board. Both young lives, full of dreams, now lost to the skies.
कोई आकर पूछा नहीं, कोई आकर कोई जानकारी लिया नहीं, कुछ भी तरीका उसका नहीं है और एक शब्द भी हमारे घर पे सुनाई नहीं। मेरे तो सिर्फ 3 बेटियां हैं। पहली काम मिला है वो मेरी बेटी। इसके बाद क्या बोलूं, कुछ बोलने की कोई।
The 12 crew members boarded the ill-dated flight as professionals, ready to serve, unaware that they were stepping into history's darkest flight.
One crash and futures of 241 people snatched away in a blink of an eye. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the reality of the aftermath of the horrific Air India 171 plane crash. A reality that the families are finding extremely difficult to grapple with. This is yet another story of an individual who succumbed to the cruel hands of fate. Arjun Bhai Manubhai Patolia's journey, cut short by the devastating plane crash. His family torn apart by grief and unfulfilled dreams. Here's the story.
Arjun Bhai Manubhai Patolia, a native of Vadia in Gujarat, had been living in London for the past few years. Life had already dealt him a cruel blow. His wife had recently passed away in London. Fulfilling her last wish, Arun Bhai returned to his hometown to perform her final rites, leaving behind their 2 children in London. In Vadia, surrounded by grieving relatives, he completed the rituals with a heavy heart. With memories weighing him down and duty fulfilled, he boarded the ill-fated Air India flight 171 on 12th of June 2025 to return to his children. But fate had other plans. The aircraft crashed, and the man who had come to bid farewell to his beloved never returned to the children they once raised together.
India eagerly waited for June 9th to see Captain Shubhanshu Shukla embark on the Axiom 4 mission. However, the mission to the International Space Station was postponed due to a technical glitch being detected on the Falcon 9 rocket. ISRO Chief V. Narayanan also posted on X. He stated that ISRO is working closely with Axiom Space, NASA and SpaceX as they responsibly address the ISS module observation causing the delay. When the mission launches, the world will witness Shubhanshu Shukla from India, Peggy Whitson from the US, Slavos Uznansky from Poland, and Tibor Kapu from Hungary making their way to the International Space Station.
Before we go to the debate at 8 p.m., let me take you through the headlines we are tracking at this hour. DGCA, the preliminary investigation, has ruled out any bird hit or flight overloading. Too little, too late, DGCA. 242 lives lost. DGCA now orders inspection of all Boeing 787 aircraft. Republic investigation reveals that there was minimum 70 ton of fuel in the Air India aircraft that crashed. As Air India 171 took off, none of them knowing it would be their final journey. The story of the 20-year-old air hostess who lost her life in the ill-fated flight. Black box has now been handed over to the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau for further investigation. Slipping into a short commercial break, coming up, the big debate with Editor-in-Chief Arnab Goswami.
Powered by Century Ply Club Prime. Raho befikar.
Amity has been ranked amongst the top 3% universities globally, a testimony to Amity's globally benchmarked quality.
MDH की हल्दी मिर्ची धनिया करे कमाल, ये रंग दे, ये खुशबू दे, ये तीखा, ये कम पड़े, क्या निराला MDH मसाला.
Hi, this is Chef Ranveer Brar and I'm here to tell you that also gives me the license to guarantee you brilliance on behalf of IIHM.
Join International Institute of Hotel Management.
Mahi sir, how much do you love your fans?
Honestly, I love my new fans. पुराने वाले बेकार में शोर करते.
सर फैंस हैं, शोर तो करेंगे ही ना.
नए वाले नहीं करते. And they listen to what I say.
The new generation Orient BLDC fans. Super silent performance with voice control.
Silly me, I thought.
Cricket fans.
Where the software engineer meets the cool UI UX designer, meets the gifted content writer. To create the big dream, the world comes together at Sharda University. So where are you?
आधे बाउल दही में 4 चम्मच MDH चटनी पुदीना मसाला डाला, स्टर करो, पुदीना चटनी तैयार. MDH चटनी पुदीना मसाला.
Why give contracts to Turkish firms for aircraft maintenance? Time to stop all Turkish maintenance of Indian aircraft. Should all Indian airlines snap ties with Turkish firms? Debating tonight at 8 p.m.
Deep in the dense forest of Gadchiroli, a silent force moves with the precision and purpose. These are the C-60 commandos, elite anti-Naxal unit trained to fight to end the Naxal terror.
time, we're not just reading the news, we are leading it with responsibility. Every night, we're asking tough questions, breaking the biggest stories, and setting the national agenda. At Republic School of Journalism, you will learn how to front the news with confidence, clarity, and conviction. RSJ Diploma begins June 30th. Your prime time starts here.
From the Republic Media Network headquarters, it's time for Arnab Goswami on the debate. Arnab Goswami on the debate.
On the show tonight, Air India crash raises serious questions about the way the Tata Group has been managing the airline and the questions of links between Air India and some firms who they are working with in Turkey. At 8:30 p.m. tonight, an exclusive interview with the ambassador of Israel to India on why they struck Iran and killed Iran's nuclear experts. At 9 p.m. tonight, we go deep into what went wrong with AI 171, what led to the crash that claimed the lives of 241 passengers. First tonight, I'd like to say to the Tata Group and to Air India that this is Republic. The Tata Group and Air India, maybe the Tata Group doesn't know, but they should know that this is Republic. This is the Republic Media Network. It is the largest, most impactful, and the only journalist-owned news network in the country. We will ask the questions. We don't believe in this PR approach. And to those in Air India trying to contact us informally, I would say contact us formally and give us your point of view, we'll carry it. But we don't believe in PR. We don't believe in any planted stories. We will do what we want to do in the interests of our viewers as the largest and most impactful news organization in the country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, according to multiple media reports, 2 weeks ago, Air India's foreign CEO Campbell Wilson himself confirmed that heavy maintenance for some of the airlines' wide-bodied B777 and B787 aircraft had been outsourced to a Turkey-based group company called Turkish Technic. Calling it part of a global supply chain, Wilson said that India currently lacks sufficient capacity for such maintenance. I want to know from Air India when they will give us a reply as to which firms are maintaining the aircraft of Air India, who is managing the maintenance of the flight that crashed, who is managing the B777 and B787 aircraft, and does Turkish Technic do maintenance for any Air India aircraft? According to the Turkish Technic website, this is the maintenance arm of Turkish Airlines, and its shares are owned by Turkish Airlines, and 49% of Turkish Airlines is reportedly owned by the Republic of Turkey through its sovereign wealth fund, making this ultimately Turkish Technic also linked to the state of Turkey. And the state of Turkey is inimical to the interests of India. The state of Turkey works with Pakistan. The state of Turkey sent drones to fight India. The state of Turkey is effectively, for the people of India, an enemy state. Air India needs to answer the questions of the Republic Media Network. Instead of accurate, responsible, and informed reporting. Many channels are today asking broad questions and only carrying human interest stories about what happened and the tragedy which happened. Republic believes that while we do that as well, we request a clarification from Air India by sending them an email. We are yet to hear from them. We want them to answer our questions. 4 hours have passed. The mail went at 3:55 p.m. Air India has not responded yet. And my question is that, one, based on information currently available to us, Air India's maintenance contract with Turkish Technique remains valid till 31st August 2025. Can you please confirm whether this is correct? This is my first question. When was the initial maintenance agreement with Turkish Technique signed? How many times has this agreement been renewed since its inception? When was the most recent renewal of the contract with Turkish Technique carried out by Air India? How many aircraft in Air India's fleet by type and number are currently maintained by the Turkish Technique contract? Specifically with respect to the Boeing 787-8 aircraft that was involved in the June 12th crash, which entity is responsible for its maintenance and airworthiness, and at any time in the past has it been maintained by Turkish Technique? The reason I am asking Air India, respectfully as a journalist, as a citizen of India, to snap all ties with Turkish firms is because unless Mr. Chandra of Tata Group is not aware, which knowing him, I cannot believe he is not, and unless Campbell Wilson pretends that he is not, the fact of the matter is Turkey is Pakistan's second largest arms supplier after China. It has bolstered its military with advanced exports like Bayraktar drones and cruise missiles. We can't do business in a strategic sector with Turkey. That's a visual of Campbell Wilson running away from Republic's Gopi yesterday at the airport. That question on Turkey was asked. And that question on Turkey is very relevant. During Operation Sindoor, the Tata Group and Air India very well know that Pakistan deployed 300 to 400 Turkish origin drones across 36 locations to probe India's air defenses and launch kamikaze strikes on strategic positions. Nobody more than the Tata Group is aware, because the Tata Group also will work in India's defense sector, and therefore we cannot ignore the fact that Turkey has taken an anti-India stance, and Erdogan has emphasized in his visit to Pakistan that Kashmir is and will be the same for us, drawing a battle between the Gallipoli battle and the Kashmir conflict. There is no country which is as anti-India as Turkey. And logically, therefore, I want to know whether Air India has been given a long rope to decide how to carry out its business with this Turkish company. But I refuse to believe, unless there's a commercial interest involved, I refuse to believe that there is no other place where Air India planes can be maintained than Turkey. These are relevant questions. Air India, listen to us. This is Republic. We don't do PR. Answer our questions. We'll put it on air. We might send you a few more questions after that. Let's debate.
The crash of Air India flight AI 171 has once again brought flight safety concerns back to the forefront. The Boeing 787 aircraft that was involved in the crash has a history of manufacturing concerns raised by whistleblowers based out of United States.
I have analyzed Boeing's own data to conclude that the company is taking manufacturing shortcuts on the 787 program that may significantly reduce the airplane safety and the life cycle. Since 2013, there have been serious issues on the 787 program, not properly closing thousands of gaps in its assembly of the fuselage on major joints.
The concerning record of Boeing 787 combined with Air India's recent technical snags in various cases have raised serious operational concerns at Air India, drawing ire on flight safety standards. As per documents accessed by Republic, in the last 2 months, Air India received close to 15 show cause notices from the DGCA, India's civil aviation regulator, on issues ranging from expired emergency equipment, unauthorized cockpit entry, and old registration and certification of aircraft. Just yesterday, on June 12th, another Air India flight, AI 3416, flying from Chandigarh to Leh, made an unexpected turnback after the pilot reported low pressure in the green hydraulic pump. But when inspections took place on the A3 A320 aircraft, it was found that there was a leak in the hydraulic line in the nose gear area. Serious questions are being raised on Air India's flight maintenance, repair and overall standards. Amidst this, it is learnt that Turkish firms too are involved in the maintenance of some of Air India's wide-bodied aircraft, also of the Boeing fleet. However, after Operation Sindoor, the involvement of Turkish firms in India's civil aviation has been under DGCA scrutiny. The DGCA gave final 3-month extension to Indigo to terminate its damp lease of 2 Turkish Airlines Boeing 777 aircraft. On May 15th, Bureau of Civil Aviation Security had revoked the security clearance of Istanbul headquartered Celebi Aviation, citing national security, though this matter is sub judice now. Earlier this month, Air India CEO had said that they will recalibrate where they sent their aircraft for maintenance and look for alternative in the light of the recent developments. Republic questioned the Air India CEO Campbell Wilson about the scope of the company's alleged partnership with Turkish Technic.
India still have contract with Turkish Technic?
I don't think this is the appropriate time to talk about that. We're very focused on supporting the families and everyone affected by today's incident.
We just wanted to know, is Air India accountable for this?
Look, it's our aircraft, it's our crew. We need to make sure the investigation is well supported. But first and foremost, we want to look after the people that have been affected by this incident.
One last question. There were multiple show cause notices given. Why were they ignored?
I don't believe this is the appropriate time to talk about things that are unrelated to this incident.
You would at least have information about the Turkish Technic. Do you have contract with Turkish Technic?
As I said before, this is not the time to talk about that. We're focused very much on the people that have been affected by this incident.
No? Just yes or no. Mr. Wilson, please say yes or no.
Republic has also sent a detailed questionnaire to Air India, inquiring about the scope and extent of its alleged partnership with Turkish Technic. As of now, Republic has received no official response to these queries. The big question remains: is it time for Indian Airlines to suspend ties with Turkish firms, including in the domain of aircraft repair, maintenance and overhaul?
Is a global aviation safety expert joining us this evening. And my first question is to Christine Negroni, also joining us live. She's a very well-regarded air safety specialist and a veteran aviation journalist. Ms. Negroni, I'd like to come to you first. How do you view the incidents and the information that is now available, as of now, on the basis of information we have about the Air India crash? What is your initial understanding of what could have happened? Or what could have been the contributing factors to this tragedy?
Well, the goal of the investigators is obviously to take a look at all of the evidence that is available, including the videos, but more specifically, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, which will provide fact-based information for the investigation, and that will narrow the scope of where the investigation will lead and what the contributing factors might be. That's the way it's done.
Yeah, I do understand. But it has been said that this has been seen to be a very safe aircraft, the Dreamliner, in the past. Have there been any history of incidents with this particular, plane, which have raised questions on the safety front, even though they might have been not been?
I think that's
yes.
I think it's been well reported around the world that the Dreamliner has had a troubled past. It entered into service and then was immediately pulled out of service for 2 months because of lithium-ion batteries and the design of the lithium-ion batteries, which allowed it to get overheated and then go into thermal runaway. So these There was that, and as your reporter mentioned in her news report, the whistleblowers have made it clear that in the assembly plant in South Carolina, there have been problems that created a need for the FAA to provide oversight to the manufacturing of the Dreamliners. So for when journalists say it's an extremely safe aircraft, I'm not exactly sure what they're basing that on, because safety is determined by a lot more than just whether people die. It's determined by incidents and events that happen that are not expected and things that are learned about the way the airplane may perform in service. So would I say it's a safe airplane? I would say that it has a troubled past, and we need to look at it from that perspective.
Absolutely. Which raises one other question. How is it, Captain John Cox, that Air India, being a large airline and India being the third largest aviation market in the world, did not raise these issues earlier? There don't appear to have been specific issues raised about Boeing 787-8 aircraft in India at all in the past.
Well, after this tragedy, the focus right now needs to be on understanding what happened. It would be premature and it would be speculative to say that there's a problem with the airplane, the fleet, until we understand what happens. Fortunately, the recorders, the cockpit voice recorder, flight data recorder, I believe have been recovered. That will give us insight into what happened here. Until we have that information, the focus needs to be on understanding what happened in this tragedy, and let the investigation unfold, let the investigators do its work, so that we can prevent a reoccurrence of something like this.
How long would that take to get some initial report on what might have happened?
I think that we're fortunate because the 787 is a very modern airplane, so the recorders are thousands of parameters. If the recorders are in good shape and can be downloaded, the investigators will know an awful lot probably within a week.
Is there anything, lastly, Captain John, and then to Christine, Captain John first, that you can, I don't want us to second guess anything, but here across India there has been a lot of speculation given the fact that this only went up. The problem started when it was 200 to 300 feet in the air. The plane has taken off, and then it appears to stall, and there's an attempted lift off again, with the nose little tilted up again. As a layman, the question to you, is there something you sense? I'm not asking you to say anything conclusively. Is there anything, this points a direction towards this, what is this no thrust, no lift kind of situation that accompanied the Mayday call? With the Mayday call, it was also no thrust, no lift, which was apparently the words that were used.
I understand, and the videos, which the investigators will look at, will help, but they're grainy. The fidelity of the videos is not really sufficient to conclusively determine if, for example, the wing flaps and slats were properly deployed. That will be on the flight data recorder. So the information right now is all premature. And as an aircraft accident investigator for some 35 years, I know that a lot of initial information turns out to be incorrect. So right now, what we know is the airplane initiated takeoff roll. It came off the ground. It appears about normally. It got a few hundred feet in the air. The rate of climb decreased, and then it began to descend, and it descended into the ground. So those things, those are facts we can determine. The cause of it at this point, we don't have enough information, enough evidence to make any even speculative guesses.
Ms. Negroni, would you like to add to that?
Well, John said it all perfectly, and that is that it looks like a lot of things, or it looks like some specific things based on the video, but the fact is we can only talk about it now, but in a matter of days, the knowledge will be there, the data will be there, the indisputable data will be there. What's interesting about improper configuration, and John, as a pilot, will certainly speak to this better than I, is that it's very difficult for pilots to ignore an improper configuration warning. So that makes it curious that if this plane was not properly configured, Why? Why? Was that a pilot issue? Was it an airplane issue? Did it start off with proper configuration and then suddenly fail? These are the things we don't know now, and the video's not illuminating about that. But he's correct. This is not going to be a mystery for long, and it will become clear what happened. The next question is why it happened, and that's a little bit more tricky.
I understand. Well, John and Christine, I thank you both very much for joining us and throwing light on what the basis of information that we have as of now. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I have a latest statement that has come in from the CEO of Air India. It's a video statement. Could we please play it out?
Good evening. I am sharing this message from Ahmedabad, where Air India flight AI 171 to Gatwick crashed shortly after takeoff yesterday. Tragically, since my first briefing, we have confirmed that 241 of the 242 passengers and crew perished in the incident. All of us at Air India are devastated by this loss and grieve for those affected, their families, and their loved ones. Air India's advanced team of nearly 100 caregivers and 40 engineering staff has now arrived in Ahmedabad. The technical team is now helping at the site, and our caregivers are providing support to families. Many more caregivers are travelling to Ahmedabad to provide further support. We have set up Friends and Relatives Assistance Centres at Ahmedabad, Mumbai, Delhi and London Gatwick airports for the next of kin of our passengers and crew members. These centres are facilitating their travel to Ahmedabad and providing them full support. The Tata Group, our parent company, has announced that they will provide 1 crore rupees, or approximately 85,000 British pounds, to the families of each person who lost their life, and will cover the medical expenses of those injured. We are also deeply concerned for the well-being of the students of the medical hostel involved in the accident. Air India is committed to providing full and unstinting assistance in these difficult times. This morning, I visited the crash site and was deeply moved by the scenes. I also met key stakeholders in the government and assured them that Air India is committed to full cooperation with those working on the ground and to the investigations. We know that the investigations will take time, but we will be fully transparent and will support the process for as long as it takes. Air India will continue to do everything we can to care for those affected by this tragedy and to uphold the trust placed in us. Thank you.
A prepared statement that means absolutely nothing. My first question is to General Bishambar Dayal joining us now, and we have Group Captain G.P. Bajpai, former flight safety consultant with Air India. We have Akriti Bhatia. She's joining us on the other side tonight on the Turkey question. And we'll have Lokesh Jindal join us as well. I'm quite shocked that there is still an agreement that they have with a Turkish company for maintenance of some of their wide-bodied aircraft. I don't know if this one particularly. Is that a good thing, General Dayal? Given the context of...
that is a very large issue that you have raised, and I'm telling you that's shocking actually. And why it is shocking is because we as a country don't think through anything. See, we have one of the largest in Asian context, Southeast Asia, in this region, largest Air India Engineering Services Limited, AIESL, which holds all certifications for Airbus, for Boeing, for all aircraft, all types of certifications. I do not know where such a wonderful organization has, over this period, where has it gone, and why Air India had to suddenly go to Turkey, that issue. Secondly, why didn't we carry out a complete security? You cannot have Celebi Aviations or their maintenance MROs going to Turkey when you know that we have not today. Turkey has been supporting Pakistan for last 10 years. It's well known. It's an established fact. So why did our security agencies even permit this sort of a thing?
Why did the security agencies permit an agreement between Tata's owned Air India and Turkey? Lokesh Jindal is on the other side. Lokesh, what do you think?
Well, Arnav, there is already an aircraft accident investigation bureau that we have working under Ministry of Civil Aviation, which works as per the guidelines and protocol established by International Civil Aviation Organization, and which is looking into this entire matter. What I intend to say is that let the investigation bureau come out with its findings. Only then it would be
so
wise.
After Operation Sindoor, when Celebi had its security clearance taken away, Group Captain GP Bajpai, they went to the court questioning it, but still Celebi lost the contract for ground handling. How come this carries on till date? Is that a safe thing to do? Is that good for the country? Group Captain?
No, Arnav, I don't agree at all, because I, being a loyal member of the Rashtra Pratham, is a firm believer that friend to friend is a friend and friend to enemy is an enemy. And Turkey is the same country who has supplied the drone, and in those hot times when we were almost in a war situation, or in fact we were undertaking war with our enemy, Pakistan, Turkey took the side of Pakistan. So it had really troubled me. And as far as the Selvi things are there, to best of information available to me, though the Turkey's security clearance and everything has been stopped, but all the men and the material of the Turkey has been distributed to two firms. One is the Bird, who is taking care of ground handling, and the second is Indo-Thai firm. And the Bird, most likely, I am not very sure, is handling, is performing the ground handling activity at Ahmedabad. It is yet to be confirmed, but the information I got from my sources, it is the Bird who is doing. So you might have changed the owner, but the man, the philosophy of working, the thinking of them will remain same. That's my thinking on the subject.
I'm with you on this. Dr. Akriti Bhatia is a postdoctoral fellow at the Delhi School of Economics. What's your take on this? Akriti.
So, Arnab, there are two separate issues that we're talking about here. And if we're talking about Air India breach and disaster, strict investigation is needed to look into the role and involvement of this Turkish firm. But the bigger question, I would say, is not just for Air India and Tata, but also to the government of India, which has been outsourcing and privatizing priority sectors like defense, airlines, and railways, and therefore outsourcing the safety and security of citizens of India. So whoever is being involved needs a very strict kind of supervision and check. That's one. And the second is that post-Operation Sindoor, the deteriorating relations between India and Turkey, there are different kinds of countermeasures that have been taken by the government of India, economic, academic, tourism-related countermeasures. So it's not that our government is sitting quietly.
No, our government is responding now. My problem is, Akriti, that our government is responding now. I will have information with Shawan at 9 o'clock that the government is now asking for urgent information from Air India on who their third-party maintenance agencies are after Republic Media Network has made this a public issue. But till now,
transparent from the get-going, and also right after Operation Sindoor, when the Turkish involvement with Pakistan and the drones and all of that was visible, with immediate effect, some actions should have been taken, and not those 3-month notices and such kinds of things should have been there. This is all.
That's the point. There is no urgency. Akriti, that is my point. In the government system, there is no urgency, Doctor. I have a letter here. I can show it to you. So you want to have a look at this? This is an investigation report. You can see it, which shows that planes were flying. I'm handing it over. Planes are flying with expired emergency equipment. You will see in that the offender is Air India. Campbell Wilson's name is in the first page. This is an authentic document. And in response, the Civil Aviation Ministry gave 15 days. General Dayal, that you respond to us in 15 days. This whole approach is like that.
No, our entire approach to safety and security, Arnab, whole India knows last 40 years we are suffering at the hands of our adversaries, those who cannot stand India, those who have been undermining Indian security, safety of our people, right? They can go to any extent. When a country lives around such hostile, adversaries.
Correct.
We got to be very, very... And when we have resources...
Now there's no point. The same government is writing to Air India saying, reply to us by the end of the day.
Arnab, see, I'm not an aviation expert. Look at and I don't know whether our people are so conscious today that this investigation will go beyond the technical aspects. This is one of the best airliners, aircraft. This has got twin engine, which are Rolls-Royce engine. It may have defects into its in design and all.
But there is government failure also in this.
But Arnab, there could be any other threat.
What are the threat?
There could be any. I am of the opinion that today these are all electronic systems. The aircrafts inside are no more operational things, are no more mechanical, no more manual by hand. Most of the things are electronic, most of the things are digital. And I personally feel, and I don't want to create any suspicion or anything, and I don't want to accuse anybody, but I'm of the opinion that whenever such things happen, our security agencies must look into it. Is there any scope where our adversary has done any sabotage, any cyber, anything? Because these are painful things. It is one of the most devastating things. Our sympathies are with our people. Our people, those who have lost. We in garb of sadness and in this gloom, our security agencies must see through. Actually, till we do not stabilize with two such heinous adversaries for 30 years, 20 years, this should be our top priority.
Yeah, but one priority in India becomes after this buying time. I suspect Air India, Government of India, all parties involved will express their condolences, their grief, and then they will buy time.
See,
and the attempt to buy time will continue for some time till the grief and anger rolls over, and then they can do their own way of handling it. I'm concerned about this.
See,
I'm a cynic when it comes to this.
It has taken off. All securities, all technical checks have been done. It has just taken off. It's a twin engine. Twin engines have never failed. There are twin engines. One engine is capable of lifting it. It has not gone beyond a height. Either it would have overslipped, overgone into this, all those things. I'm not an aviation expert, but what I feel as a security man is that we got to be very careful. The whole area should have been sanitized. We don't know what adversary is thinking. We don't know what sort of, when you have people like Munir breathing over your population every time, and when they get recognition, you got to be more than careful. I'm not trying to derail your debate. I'm not
accusing you of derailing the debate.
We are not.
I am in fact in agreement. But I want to bring back the focus location, the Turkish issue. How can Indian airlines, by which I mean whether Indigo, Air India or any other airlines, work with Turkish companies? Well,
Arnab, all these issues are administrative. And if the government enables any private company to engage in any form of a contract with other private company within the framework of law...
What is the framework of law? What is the framework of law, Lokesh?
What I'm saying is, if the government comes out with a clear-cut statement that all the contracts are severed and...
I agree. The government must have a policy and must not act on the basis of information coming on the media. I'm sure the information was available with the government.
Unilaterally, any company cannot sever the agreement. That will be...
The country to take a position.
Contract law.
No, the government can give a direction.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, still the investigation is on. Now, Boeing has got a bad track record. 2024, the Boeing aircraft door just flew in the air. Hardly after 9 minutes when the aircraft has taken off, the door, it flew in the air. So there has been a lot of issues which are concerning the Boeing company.
I am with you on that, but I'm saying that right now I truly believe it is the government which has to stop giving a long rope to any companies working with Turkish industry, especially in strategic areas like aviation. This is only elementary. I thank you very much, General Dayal, and everyone else for joining me here. The big other story today, and I'll run some big full-frame visuals on this, has been the huge escalation between Israel and Iran. Israel has struck Iran, full frame, hitting about 100 targets, specifically the military and nuclear sites, under an operation that they are calling Operation Rising Lion. At least 2 top commanders from Iran have been reportedly killed in the strikes. Israel says it has enough intel evidence to believe that Iran's nuclear program had reached what they call a point of no return. Netanyahu is saying that the operation is aimed to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. And he is insisting that this is in global interest. Trump is backing Netanyahu, and Israel is confident that it will be able to counter any response that comes in from the Iranian side. Well, I have earlier spoken today to Reuven Azar, who is the ambassador of Israel to India, and I now would like to play out that conversation exclusively for the debate. With us is the ambassador of Israel to India, Ambassador Reuven Azar. Thank you very much, Ambassador Azar. The very newsy point of time as far as Israel is concerned. Now, Israel has carried out Operation Rising Lion, and you've targeted Iranian nuclear facilities. How many have you targeted? Have you eliminated their nuclear infrastructure? Is there going to be a second round of these strikes? And what retaliation do you expect?
Well, Arnab, at the outset, allow me to share the condolences of the entire nation of Israel for this, following this terrible plane crash yesterday.
Thank you.
Our hearts go out to the victims, their families, and we wish a speedy recovery to the injured.
Yes.
It's a difficult moment. And we also have our challenges, as you rightly said. We have decided to take this action, Arnab, because we sensed and we knew that the Iranians were about to assemble the nuclear weapon. So as you know, they've been accumulating fissile material, but in parallel to that, and parallel to the negotiations they've been having with the United States, they had a clandestine group that was actually trying to assemble a nuclear weapon. And that's why we attacked. And we attacked not only their their nuclear facilities, we attacked their missile capability, because if the nuclear track is the first track to annihilate Israel, the